Good evening, good evening, brothers and sisters, and welcome once again to the Leo and Larry Show, the show that tells you the things that you need to know and tells you the places that you need to go to be successful and free and healthy and whole. And as always, we have a terrific guest for you. This evening, we have with us someone many of you know locally and across the state, and I'll even say probably in other parts of the country, I'm sure. And I'm talking about Buquilla Ervin Cannon, the program assistant for Man to Man Fatherhood Initiative of South Carolina. Welcome, Buquilla Ervin Cannon.
Thank you so much, Reverend Woodbury. It is a wonderful opportunity to share this space with you. We have done so much working the community together, and we're still moving and still writing new chapters.
Absolutely, yes, we are, because the book is never finished, right?
That's right. Every
Yeah.
day there is something to enter into the chapter.
Yes, and so as you said, we've done a lot of work together, and we just don't, fall into this work. I meet people all the time who say, "I want to do this, I want to do that," and I always caution them because you have to start somewhere, and then you build up to the place where you would like to be. So why don't you tell our audience about yourself and things that you've done in your life, and how have you come to do the work that you've done in general and the work that you're doing now specifically with Man to Man, the Fatherhood Initiative of South Carolina.
Thank you. For in 2000, I actually started the PD Minority Health Office. We serve the 6 counties of the PD. We provided indigent care services. We provided health care classes, health screenings, diagnostic studies, everything that we could do to increase the lifespan of African Americans, um, Indian, everybody that was of black and brown color, because they were the ones that were having the health disparities. So we started the PD Minority Health Office. We basically were located on Wallace Street, and then after being on Wallace Street for 6 years, we moved to South Doggan Street in front of the now renovated Florence County Library. During
Mm-hmm.
that time, during that time, we were able to service areas, rural areas in lower Florence County, Williamsburg County. We also went out into some of the reservations and provided medical services for them. We basically was in that office under the PD Minority Health Office for 32 years.
Wow.
Now I am a minority health consultant, and I consult on several different platforms. I am actually on the board of the Black Women's Health Study with out of Boston University, out of Boston, Massachusetts. And actually, we signed up with the Black Women's Health Study in 2005, and we have been working with them since then. They provide so much information on black women's health and how and why we are dying in large numbers more than any other race, and maternal care, why we die in childbirth, and why our children die in childbirth. So we have been doing intensive studies on that and have actually been able to record data information surveys and in reference to why and what women need to do to take better care of themselves. We provided free mammograms um, under the Breast Cancer African American Foundation. We actually provided transportation to MUSC Duke, and also in one, few instances to Sloan Kettering. That's the kind of impact that we made in the PD area.
Great, wonderful. And what brought you to the Man-to-Man Fatherhood Initiative?
Well, our office closed the week after COVID announcement in Florence, and what they did, they went into regional services. So the actual office now is located in Atlanta, right off of Peachtree Street,
Wow.
and the services that we were providing to the six counties is now being done by Hope Health, Care South, and Black River. They're getting the fundings now,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they're
Yeah.
providing the services.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it was it was like who was going to get the federal fundings, who was going to get the state fundings, and when Hope came into fruition on right on Irby Street, that was only
Mm-hmm.
3 blocks from us. So most of the funding and federal grants and federal funding and state funding, private grants actually goes to those community health centers now.
Mm-hmm. Which is good in a way, and it has some challenges too. What we do when we do community-based solutions and programs, we want them amplified. We want them to cover a large area. We want to have other partner organizations come in that have more capacity. Then on the other hand, I always kind of feel like when you have things based in the community and run by community-based organizations, there's a level of commitment that doesn't wither away, that doesn't go away when there's no funding, because then you're talking about providing services to your family members, the
Exactly.
congregants, your church, your classmates, etc. And so I'm always happy to see things amplified, but I know there's been numerous examples when, you know, much needed services have gone away because once those larger entities don't get funded, they don't have the level of commitment that will cause them to continue to do the work, as you have done, I'm sure, in the past, whether there's money or no money, a lot of money or little money. So I always feel two ways about those sorts of things. I always feel like you should keep the community based and amplify. But that's me.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And Reverend Woodbury, that is so important because as an advocate of health issues, we have been advocating for more African American doctors in the United States for the last 20 years. The actual numbers of African American physicians is like maybe 5% of the entire population of
Mm,
doctors, and it is a sad situation because studies have shown that people will go and listen and follow the instructions of people that look like them,
oh
especially
yeah,
in the medical
absolutely.
field.
Hmm.
When they because they know that they study and they research that they know that they are looking at themselves as well as their patients. So
Hmm.
they're going to do everything that they can, and most of the time when our patients go to the ER, it is a band aid approach. It is whatever we can do to get you out of here.
Hmm.
But if we had more doctors of color,
Hmm.
then they would know the history. of African Americans and the Indian population and Hispanic, and they would know because
Mhm.
they have studied and they know what their families went through as
Right.
well as themselves.
And there's a cultural piece as well. I had an African American doctor, and he told me, we had a conversation. I told him, I said, I prefer to have a person of color doctor, and I said that has nothing to do with race or bigotry or prejudice. And he said to me, he said, you're absolutely right. He said, because there's cultural pieces and historical pieces, and this is the example he gave me. He said, if I examine you and I see that you're lacking in some vitamins and nutrients, he said, and you're African American, he said, I'm not going to tell you to go home and eat more asparagus and Brussels sprouts and cauliflower. He said, because I know African Americans, those are not regular dishes
Yeah,
in their diet. He said, I'm going to tell you to go home and eat more turnips and eat more mustard greens and more collards. You know what I mean? And so that piece is another important piece of what you're saying. And then
exactly.
and then I want to add that, after slavery and during Jim Crowism and segregation, at one time, African Americans had 500 independent hospitals in this
Yes,
country. They were small.
exactly. Yes,
And so my thing is we have more money today, we have more education today, we have access to more technology today. It should not be 5% of doctors, African American uh, doctors, that it should not be that low. Not when we were able to do more when we had less.
exactly. And in the specialty areas, it's even less than that.
Mm-hmm,
When you talk about the oncologists, the orthopedic surgeons, it's even less than what we're talking about. And I was able to interview a young lady that is a nurse, and she was actually in tears because she said that if you don't think that racial bias is in the medical community, she said, talk to me, talk to others that look like me. There are people that still do not want African Americans and people of color to be in the room with them, to be their nurses. And this
mm-hmm,
is the year 2024. She
mm-hmm,
said it was tears in her eyes. She said, and I knew that what she said was authentic because I have experienced that myself
mm-hmm,
on other occasions. But then there was a person of the Caucasian that actually did a YouTube video about the racism that still is prevalent in 2024. When you
mm-hmm,
have patients that do not want to be treated by physicians of color, nurses of color, lab technicians of color, do not even want them in the room. And it kind of speaks to the culture that we're living in right now because people are more blatant to speak openly and
mm-hmm,
boldly about their feelings of racism. They use those words that we don't like to hear.
mm-hmm,
And the sad part about it is that it's no repercussions because they
mm-hmm.
have choices.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And that is sad because if anyone should be suspicious of dealing with physicians and healthcare practitioners of another race, you would think it would be African American, especially with things like the Tuskegee experiment. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And other, Dr. Marion Sims, who they call the father of uh, the father of gynecology,
Mhm.
who learned what he learned by buying slaves and killing them.
Yes,
And yes,
yes,
and yeah, and so if anyone should walk into a room and say, "Hey, I don't know if I want to be treated by you," you would think it would be African Americans,
that's it. That's
and they have
exactly it, sir.
Caucasian health practitioners. So that is, oh, that is, I don't even know what to say about that. you
Yeah.
know, it's a part of the delusion that's called racism in this country. And one would think in 2024 that people would still think and feel that way. You know what I mean?
In
Yeah.
2024, and now with the situation that's going on the national level, where inclusion, diversity, and everything is on the chopping block, as my grandfather would say, and they don't want you to use words as diversity, minority, or any type of issue that is not prevalent on their agenda, then they don't want you to use these terms, and they are actually suing African American organizations that
Mm-hmm.
uses the word minorities to keep them from getting federal money and state
Mm-hmm.
as well, because they don't want, if they can't remove those terms from their organization, then they are actually working to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that they close these organizations down. I was
Right.
in Raleigh when that was last month, when the first and the only African American bookstore had to close because of the fact that she was being threatened, her life, her children. She was afraid to even open the store because she had been threatened, and notes left on the door, and windows and doors broken because she was an African American woman
Mm-hmm.
that had books to help our children and their children know what their history is. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just one thing, one issue after another. And now, as we were looking at the NFL drafts, not one came from an HBCU. Not one came from an HBCU. And I have to keep saying that because it's almost unreal that they did not draft anybody from our HBCU, as these students play out of their heart and work so hard. They totally looked over them in the
Mm-hmm.
2024 football drafts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And there's two schools of thought with that. I actually look at diversity, equity, and inclusion as the kind of softer, milder form of dealing with that whole travesty called racism. I can tell you that there's much harsher and tougher ways to describe that whole system that's in place. So the fact that folks cannot even accept that as a way to uh, re-navigate what goes on structurally in this country, and to be able to help all of us in this country be in a better place where we're really pluribus unum out of many one is it makes no sense at all. But
Mhm.
one thing I wanted, because the health dilemma is really important, and especially you mentioned COVID. And well, one of the things that we're seeing now is a large increase in mental health issues, and COVID just made that worse, I believe.
I
How do you?
agree. I agree. I totally agree. And it's just, I'm so glad to be here today, because today, May 1st, kicks off Mental Health Awareness Month.
Uh huh.
So, so I'm excited about the opportunities that prevail itself in mental health this month, and how it is still on the back burner in our state, but other states are far more progressive in providing services for mental health. And
Mm-hmm.
it is an issue with starting from even children now. You've seen so many children being diagnosed with some level of mental health. And
Mm-hmm.
so it is the sad part about it in the African American community. People refuse to admit that they need help. They're so afraid of the stigma of us not being able to handle different situations. So
Mm-hmm.
it is so important that we use this month to put a light put a light on mental health.
Mm-hmm. And I truly believe that the explosion that we're seeing in gun violence, that other types of violence, the increase in suicide, particularly there's an increase with teen suicide, particularly the teenage Black girls.
Mhm.
That is increasing, and I think that to me, we really should be addressing it because we know that during COVID made it worse. You have
It made it
people,
worse. Yes, it did.
yeah,
And
people,
and you.
but yeah, I was gonna say people have been locked in for 3 years with people
Yes.
who were physically abusing them, emotionally abusing them, sexually abusing them. People who needed help before COVID weren't able to access mental health care. And so it just became worse now. And then all the issues that people have, I mean, the issues that people feel are out of their control: gun violence, climate change, um,
Mhm.
political division, it's just so many things, problems with our families. There's so many things are going on that people feel are out of their control,
Yes.
and they have trauma, they have depression, they have all of these things. Yeah.
And
And like you said, the African American community really doesn't believe in therapy. Mhm.
they
I
won't.
should
They
say,
they won't. And you know, Robert Woodbury, you can make a referral, but they won't follow it up. They are
mm-hmm,
um, just ashamed. What I've been told just recently, of going to a therapist, psychologist, doctor. They feel that they are putting another bad light into the African American community. But I shared with them, if anybody needed help, we do.
oh
We
yeah,
do.
we have intergenerational trauma.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, we have intergenerational. In fact, the community times, I think it was last year, I wrote a piece and I called it uh, Trauma, Karma, and Drama. Because you have folks who you can say to them, let's make a garden, and they'll say, oh no, I'm not
Mhm.
getting out there. I'm not working in a field. And it's like, what do you know about agriculture? You've never been on a farm. You've never been in a field that to look at that as something to be afraid of or avoiding. And then you have people who they don't like to go across bridges, across water. And it
Mm.
I mean, and it's like, where does all these things come from? And a lot of it is intergenerational trauma.
Yes.
You never were
Yes.
a shared upper, you never were a migrant worker, you never were a slave. Why are you so averse to growing food? You know?
And that is so true. That generations of working in the fields, working for
Mm-hmm.
minimum, not even minimum wage, working all week and bringing $50 home for 40 hours or more of work. And see that comes down, it passes down through generations and generations, especially in this part of the country, in South Carolina and Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and you see everything that's going on in Tennessee, and where they don't even want people of color to have any type of voice in government or decision making, and they're even making threats to close the four colleges in Mississippi, the HBCUs in Mississippi. So we got lots of work to do, but the key to this is unity, communication, loving one another, fixing our women's crowns. It is so much that we have available within ourselves, but we must be willing to give up the stigma of not working together. We must be able to share our feelings, and when we know we need help, scream as loud as we can. This past month, I traveled along with our team to talk about child physical, mental, and sexual abuse. That's so prevalent in our Black and brown communities, and we don't get the national coverage that we should when our children are missing, and they're never heard from.
No Amber Alerts for Black children.
None, because they said that the excuses I've heard, well, they didn't meet the criteria. They may have ran away. They must have went with somebody or something like that. And the sad part about it is that it appears that nobody cares until they're found dead somewhere, or they have been trafficked and sold to a mule that was waiting at the truck stop for them to come by. It's just so discouraging to me that we have that many of children of color that are missing in the United States of America. And I mean thousands upon thousands, and never heard from again.
Yeah.
Never heard from.
And you said a key word, you said unity. And unity in community begins with family.
Yes.
And there is so much that is going wrong in our communities now. Particularly, you have people talking about gender wars, males against males in our community, and the whole thing with and I've been doing some research on this. There's some things I'll talk about. Some things I want to hold back for now because this is a huge issue. But looking at what's going on in our communities with all the dismantling of the Black family and the whole issue of men and women and fatherhood, and we have now 1 out of every 4 Black women get married. The average marriage lasts 5 years. 80% of divorces are filed by Black women. It's there. We have last figure I saw that I know is accurate. 73% of children in the African American communities are raised by single mothers or grandparents. And are born, and so how can we have unity when we have so much that we need to repair in terms of mental health, physical health, and even maintaining our family structure?
Yes.
and being real and honest about what's gone wrong and how do we fix it. And I know some of that you're involved with the family with the family initiative, correct? You must be
Yes.
seeing some. Hmm.
We are the man to man fatherhood initiative, and it is an amazing program. An amazing program. We have offices in Dillon, Marion, Florence, and Bennettsville, and
Hmm.
we serve the 6 counties of the PD. And one of the most important issues is that everything that comes through this office, there is no charge.
Hmm.
Anybody can come. Fathers, females, children, anybody that needs help. We have several programs that's available throughout this office. And we basically work with our fathers. We basically have some of the greatest interventional specialists that's in this area, and we basically provide those services to the PD region. And what they do is that they have group sessions on Mondays, and invite these young men, anybody to come in and talk about their problems. This is a place, this is a space to talk about what is going on in your life. If
Hmm.
you're having problems in your marriage, we have
Hmm.
Derek Deese that handles that part of it, the marriage counseling, the anger management classes. If you have issues with anger management, then this is the place that you can come. Again, this is the Florence office, but as I said, we have offices located in other parts of the state. Well, in about almost every county in the state, and
Hmm.
we have the opportunity to work with the couples to solve the issues, whether you're married or living together, or the fact that you don't have an amicable relationship with your children. See, that's the
Hmm.
key. That's the key. That's the key. Is
Yeah.
that if you want to save our children, then we got to grab hold to them and make sure that they know that they're loved and they're being taught everything that they need to be taught, and the street is not teaching them.
Hmm.
That's when we lose our children. So we have some, the men in this office, and they work so hard. They provide programs for the prison system. They provide county outreach. They go into the schools and work with the students in the schools. And if you just have any issues that you think you would like to talk to someone about, this is where we are.
Hmm.
And,
You
and we're
know.
located in Florence at
Hmm.
1807 West Evans Street.
Was Ervin.
1807. Hmm?
And
In,
what cross street is that near in case we have someone listening? That's near Evans and what's the cross street?
Casual.
And
Ca-
Cashville. Oh,
yeah,
good. Mm-hmm.
yeah, where the trust building is formerly the BB&T building, which
Mm-hmm.
is that 3-story building on the corner that we all used to bank at,
Right.
and
Mm.
and so we're right next door.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and we're
and
located. Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Now I was gonna say, yeah, that's very important because one of the, as a pastor, whether I'm talking about my congregants or other people come in who aren't members of the church quite frequently. I just was on the phone with a family that has a situation from North Carolina,
Mhm.
and they're here in Florence. But you know, one of the things the teaching is so important because we're not teaching each other the way that we used to. So when you were a girl, your mother and other women would tell you how young ladies conducted themselves. They told you, don't sit like that. Women don't sit like that. You're a
Mhm.
woman. You don't act like that. Women don't talk like that. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about.
We had the neighborhood moms too, Reverend Woodbury, that would
Mm-hmm.
watch out for one another's children. If your
Mm-hmm.
children came home and the parents were not there, there was the neighbor across the street and on both sides of the house. And if you got out of order, they did what the parents would have done if they were there. And
Oh
that
yeah.
kept these children in line.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I can tell you, I was a latchkey kid. You know, I'm the eldest out of five children. And I was the one who had the key to the house tied onto a shoestring that was tied up, and I wore it around my neck under my shirt when both of my parents were working. And they didn't get home till 5, but we got out of school at 3. I was the
Mhm.
latchkey. I
Mhm.
also knew Miss So and So was watching too, and that if they would check on us or if there was a problem, you know what I mean? They
Exactly.
we could go to them absolutely. And we even had this wonderful woman named Mrs. Elagore. And Mrs. Elagore, I don't know how she did it. She never had an organization, but she would take us on trips. The Statue of Liberty, Coney Island, all these different trips. And let me tell you, Buquilla, there were times when we were sitting around scheming, bored.
Mhm.
What can we do? Getting ready to get in trouble. And Miss Ellicott would walk by and say, "What are y'all doing?" "Nothing, Mrs. Ellicott. Y'all look like y'all getting ready to be up to no good." Miss Ellicott. "Well, y'all be good, cause and somehow she would get free vouchers so we could ride on the subway to free. Y'all be good, cause I'm thinking about taking you to Coney Island to the beach. It's hot out here."
Wow.
Yeah, and we would sit there, and whatever little evil plan we were hatching, that was the end of that.
That was the end of that. That
That was
was
the
the
end of that.
end
We
of
went
it.
to the beach. Uh,
And the
yeah.
other thing I know we miss because most of the houses that's being built now don't have a front porch. And
Mm-hmm.
in our when we were coming up and when generations when I was raising mine, the neighborhood moms would sit on the front porch and they would
Mm-hmm.
be the police. They would be the police. They
Mm-hmm.
would make sure that the street was in order.
Oh
And if
yeah.
you did get, I mean, that was just, they were the police because they
Mm-hmm.
kept a watch. They kept watches. They would sit on that front porch and rock
Mm-hmm.
either in a swing or a rocking chair, and they knew everything in the neighborhood that was going on.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes people would convene on a porch to
That's
talk
right.
about something going on. And that reminds me, I've been to different countries in Africa, remote areas, small villages, where they still have these they're like huts. I don't want to say hut, they're like the roof is covered, all the other sides are open, and the
Mhm.
community gathers there to talk about stuff. And there's no walls, so if everyone can't fit into that space, they can gather around it and they talk about what's going on in the village. And so I think that the front porches, to those being gathering places that they still have in Africa today to talk about
Isn't that
community.
amazing?
Yes, yes, yes,
Oh,
it's amazing. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's like you said, causes a division too. And Claude Anderson, I remember that great political figure, economist, who wrote the book Powernomics and others. I remember hearing him say once that we don't have communities. He said a village is everyone. It takes a village to raise a child. Then you have a community,
Exactly.
right? He said we don't have
Exactly.
communities anymore. He said we have neighborhoods. And he said in some places where you don't even know your neighbor, you live in a hood because you don't
And
even
that
know your neighbor.
that's what I was about to say. That is so true, Reverend Woodbury. You have we knew everybody when I was being raised in North Florence. We knew everybody on every street. And so that if
Mm-hmm.
anything comes open or anything happens, we knew who to call. But nowadays, you just know that you got a neighbor, but you don't even know who your neighbor is right next
Mm-hmm.
door to you.
Yeah, yeah. And so and all of that has to do with raising children and family and some of the challenges that we're seeing with our fathers and our mothers, you know. So
Exactly.
what do we need to do? What do you think we need to do to make those connections again, to have fathers in the home again?
One of the things that I would like to see, and I think when we were in Philly or somewhere doing the Justice tour,
Mm-hmm.
that we met this guy that basically patrols his neighborhoods. He said that they have, and I think he was one of the speakers, but he was sharing with us on the tour that they have what you call father patrols
Mm-hmm.
for those neighborhoods that don't have father figures in the home, that they
Mm-hmm.
adopt, not legally, but they adopt the children and become their mentor, taking them to, the games and taking them, out on the weekends. And most of the fathers that volunteered with that group were retired. And
Mm-hmm.
so they had the time, and their children were grown. So they had a missing piece. So they went to the universities and places to try to get the younger guys to assist as well. But they were able to go into these neighborhoods that had high crimes and kids that did not want to finish school and started mentoring these kids and fathering these children. And it was a turnaround in less than 2 years when we were up there that year. He said that program was fairly new, that they had some guys that were fraternities that had retired and they wanted something to do, but they organized, and now it's in the entire state of
Mm-hmm.
Pennsylvania. And
Yes.
I think you were talking to him about it, and he was saying to us that it is a program that can work. You can even get the women, and that's what they were working on when we were there, getting the
Mm-hmm.
women to volunteer. To mentor our young women if they're living with just their fathers, or just if they needed some assistance.
Mm-hmm.
We we need to look at what they're doing that's workable. And I thought that I was just totally in awe. I was just mainly had my whole mouth open the whole time he was
Oh yeah.
talking to us in that group session. And
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted, and there was another program, and I think we were in North Carolina for this one, that they had a similar type program, and they did theirs through the faith community, through the churches, and they
Yeah.
actually were having group sessions and doing different things, and the church had so many successful stories to tell about what they had done. And when we were meeting in those groups, we went back out to the fellowship hall at the church we were at, and there we saw all of the major graduations accomplishments of those type programs in the community.
Mm-hmm.
We need to work together to see if we can get something done here in Florence, something done in the PD region where we can get these children
Mm-hmm.
that is being expelled from the Florence School District 1 and sent to the alternative schools about
Mm-hmm.
what we can do to try to save these children because in when they are expelled from District 1 for the entire year, where do they go? They're on the
Oh,
street.
on the
They're on the
streets.
street. They're walking the
Mm-hmm.
streets all day long, and they're looking for companionship of somebody that they could kinship with, and it's usually is gangs.
It's
So,
gas.
and we try to share that, with the superintendent. Let's try to look at another way instead of putting them out of the system for a
Mm-hmm.
whole year, but nothing seems to it just fall on deaf ears. But if
Right.
we could get some kind of programs, and I think that's what Justice that tool was all about, is that we were
Mm-hmm.
able to reach out to so many other partners in the United States to make things happen in their communities, and we were able to talk, and they shared information in the classes as well as in the group.
Absolutely. And so you hit on something because we were in Chicago about 3 weeks ago, and we connected with a gentleman there who is doing amazing work, and he has agreed to work with us here in Florence to see if we can replicate some of his programs. His name is Walter Mendenhall, and both he and his brother were professional NFL football players, right? And
Wow.
so he has in the south side of Chicago, 45% of the black males who live there are unemployed and not in school.
Mhm.
And so they came up with something called the Male Mobile Initiative, where they went out, they have vans, they went out, they talked to these young people, got them off the streets, got them into businesses, got them into college. We met one young man who, at the age of 21, is the youngest landlord of multiple properties in Chicago at the age of 21. And they have 3,000 young black men that they have taken off the street and have in college or have their own businesses. They just opened up this huge, we were there for a ribbon cutting also, this huge building that used to be a warehouse. And this is where those partnerships, like you're saying, with the school district or the city, that
Mhm.
huge building that the city had gotten, and the city sold it to them for, get this, $2,500. And that building
Wow.
is now being used as a co-lab to not only teach people how to start businesses, but where they can actually have located like an incubator, there's silk screen machines, etc. And so we are so excited because he will be down here in a couple of months, and we'll be glad to partner with you and to make sure that we can get some of our
Oh, we would
children
love that.
them in a
We
great
would love
place.
that.
Yes, absolutely. No need to invent the wheel when it's already been invented, right? Yeah.
Exactly. That's always been our sentiment.
Yes, yes. So we'll definitely let you know when he's coming down, and that's going to be a ongoing relationship that we're going to be having with him. But see, that's what's important. But we have to think about too, and whether you're in a black community, a brown community, a low wealth white community, we have to stop having our communities enduring so much pain, being
Yes.
pained by when there are things that we can do ourselves. There are
Yes.
things that we do in partnership with and our entities, our cities, our city government, our county government, our school districts. They need to realize that they can't do everything, and that no one is intruding on their turf, but
That's right.
instead by
That's right.
working together, we can make a difference. Yeah.
Exactly.
So we look forward to, we're working on a date, but within the next couple of months, he'll be down here and he'll be bringing some of his young men down here as well. And we would love to get a group of our local youth together so we can have that kind of conversation and look
That
at,
sounds just amazing. So
yeah,
just keep us in the loop.
absolutely, absolutely. So you talk about anger management. Another thing that is really important for young people and our adults is learning about non-conflict resolution. How do you
Yes.
solve problems without resorting to violence, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we do have those classes. Do have consultation with Derek Deese. All of these services are available through this fatherhood initiative, creating positive spaces for our children and through their parents.
Mhm. Yeah. And I know you're an ordained minister. We're both clergy, though we know each other well enough where we don't use our titles, because
Exactly.
they are. But another thing too is with our churches. We need for our churches to be more involved in the community, and and parents, you parents who are listening out here, take your children to church. Do not give them a choice about whether or not they should be going. That is the one place that you could be assured that your child would get morals and values. And they learn things like thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. Those things that may prevent your child from being incarcerated. Isn't that right?
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But
That's it
I
right
think
there.
that's part of the problem, right?
That's exact, and we've been saying that for decades.
Mm-hmm.
We have been saying that, and we have been trying to share that thought with so many different venues in our community. But we must broaden the spectrum and
Mm-hmm.
try to reach the masses.
Yeah. So any suggestions? What? Because and I'm asking that because I know you try all kind of things. We try all kind of things. You know, with our separate organizations, our churches, and working together, like you said, to just the church. So, what can we do to capture our people's attention more? Because it is so hard, isn't it?
It is, but if we do a reality check and let them see what is going, their numbers, and
Mm-hmm.
how many times parents are going to the graveyard, how many times that mothers are crying out for their children, fathers are crying out for their children, and the one of the things that I am so concerned about is family violence now,
Mm-hmm.
because you have children that's actually just killing their own parents and parents killing their children and torturing their children. So I don't know what dark cloud we're
Mm-hmm.
under. But if we begin to show them some of these cases and some of these stats, that should wake people up. That
Mm-hmm.
should wake people up. We've got to be able to reach the masses through the churches, through the faith communities, through sororities, Greek foundations, whatever. We've got to do a 100-degree turnaround to change the
Mm-hmm.
perspective on where these kids will land.
Oh yeah. Well, another thing, and this goes back to how we started when we were talking about health issues. I
Mhm.
I believe in this, and what we called it is branding DNA, branding the DNA into organizations, into people. That when individuals begin to teach each other, remember that saying, each one teach one, that's when
Right.
we see a change. So I remember with Healthy Start, when that first started, oh my God, back in the 90s, whatever, it's been around a long time now. And they were talking about women eating correctly. And they would,
Mhm.
oh, we got to make sure that women who are pregnant are getting enough calcium and they're getting enough potassium. And I remember being at a meeting and saying, look, you need to change the language for that. And
Yes.
it shouldn't be just a brochure. It should be that you're out in the country somewhere and a young lady comes out of her grandmother's house and grandma is sitting on the porch in her rocking chair and she looks up and says, child, how you doing carrying that baby? I'm doing all right, Grandma. Are you eating plenty of bananas and eating oranges and drinking orange juice? For that baby needs that. And that's the
Mhm.
potassium, that's the calcium for the baby. And so we
That's
have
right.
to change language too, but the message has to be built into our DNA. The
Mhm.
messages that we need for change and to have a good community has to be, uh, how do I explain? Like when we used to say black is beautiful and black is proud. And
Yes.
when people start expressing those positive messages that make people believe in a future and progress and make them have good self-esteem, that's when you see change. Don't you agree?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree with that. Yes, sir. Yes,
Mhm.
sir. And we've got to find some way to reach our children when it comes to bullying. We see a lot
Mhm.
of cases like that. We see that the end for them is taking their own lives, and that's something that we have not seen in our communities. But it is
Mhm.
having a 100-degree increase as far as self-inflicted wounds, just suicide, at starting
Mhm.
even at 8 years old.
Oh
So
yeah.
these are things that we need to definitely address.
Mhm. So Buquilla, Ervin, Cannon. I told you that the time was going to go fast, right? And that we were going to enjoy this conversation. Unfortunately, we're coming to the end. And I know we kind of ended on a note talking about the things that are wrong, but praise be to God that there's some answers and solutions and people like yourself and organizations you work for that are willing to help. So why don't you tell folks how they can reach you and Man to Man, the Fatherhood Initiative, and you can share that information. And we just are so glad to have been blessed to have you on the Leo and Larry show.
Thank you so much. And first, I want to honor Larry Smith, who has been a advocate of getting our news in the media for almost 4 decades with our office, with the PD Minority Health Office. So I would just like to just call his name because we
Mm-hmm.
shall never forget from whence we come with the media when everybody else turned us away at the Minority Health Office. He was right there. He would come and he would sit and he would be in the midst talking to people. So for that, I am so grateful to him and his legacy.
Absolutely. And
My
his wife
name,
Diana, let's
and
remember her because she's carrying the torch and continuing the work.
I was going to share that she's a real good sister friend, and we just want her to know that she has the community support 100%. That we are
Mm-hmm.
behind her, keeping this legacy real.
Yes.
Okay. So our office is located at 1807 West Ervin Street, and we're
Mm-hmm.
located in Suite C.
Mm-hmm.
And the telephone number is 843-407-5130. The name
Mm-hmm.
of the organization, again, is Man to Man. We serve Chesterfield, Darlington, Dillon, Florence, Marion, and Marlborough counties.
Okay, thank you so much, Minister Buquilla Ervin Cannon. And if you want to reach me, Reverend Leo Woodbury, you can do so by going to info@newalphacdc.com. Don't forget to visit our website, www.newalphacdc.com. And you can always give me a call at the church where I am blessed to serve as pastor, Kingdom Living Temple, 705 South Irby Street, Florence, South Carolina. Telephone number 843-799-0740. So until next week, this time, always remember that if you need to know the things that you should know and go the places that you should go, remember it's the Leo and Larry show. Thank you, Minister Cannon.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a wonderful space. You have a great day.